Yeah, to any future residents, brace yourselves. You will come to know and love, and at times hate, Dallas Willard.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was coming into the residency. Now I feel like he is one of the founding fathers of Berean.
How do you describe the ministry residency?
Stupendous was the first word. Wonderful, cool. I'm out of adjectives. You guys can take over now.
So, Trevor and Claire, what was like one of your more meaningful or impactful moments?
Oh, so many.
Welcome to Don't Just Sit There. If you regularly listen or watch this show, then you'll immediately notice that I am not our lead pastor, Ryan Harmon. My name is Sean Welch. I'm the Director of Ministry Residency and Staff Development here at Lincoln Berean. Ryan, who is the regular host, he is on sabbatical. So unfortunately, you get the junior varsity host today, which is me. But I've got a great group of guests that is going to help pick up the slack. Now, before I introduce them, let me talk to you about today's topic. We are going to do a deep dive into the ministry residency program at Lincoln Berean Church. And with me, I've got our most recent graduates, the class of 2025. Trevor Smalley, Claire Eltsey, and Colin Thiessen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. We're the best class ever. Let it be known.
Now, I should also mention this. We're also missing the other co-host, Aidan Pauley. I think this is an upgrade to Aidan. Now, we're just
Definitely
Aidan,
an upgrade.
if you're listening. Aidan is a former resident. He's an alumni. He was in the very first class. He's a great friend of ours. Him and his wife, Sophie, who also was in the class, they just had their first child, a baby girl. And so we are super
big time
excited for them as they enter this new season and journey into parenthood. Now, before we talk ministry residency, I feel like I need to make a confession to y'all, okay? So when I was asked about filling in and doing a show about the ministry residency, I had to laugh a little bit. And here's the reason why, okay? I've never listened to one episode of this podcast, which I thought was incredibly ironic that they're going to ask me to host. So Ryan, Aidan, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I might not even listen to this one afterwards at all. Did y'all listen to it?
I've listened to every episode. I support my friends.
Well, today we get to talk ministry residency, which will be a lot of fun. Can you believe, by the way, that you're done with the program? Like, has that set in?
A little bit. As everybody started back to school and the residents got to come back and start school up, I'm a little sad. I'm happy we don't have homework, but also a little sad. It took away the excitement of a new school year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this was your life for 22 months.
Yeah. It's my first fall with no school.
Yeah, I don't miss the no school part. It's kind of nice.
That's not surprising at all. Yeah. Well, so we're going to talk ministry residency. For those who are not familiar with this program, it's a 22-month program designed to equip and launch kingdom leaders. And one of the things we talk about in here is that when we're launching, the goal is not that they'll necessarily work in church ministry, but it's really that you're going to be more prepared for the calling that God has on your life. That could be church ministry, parachurch ministry, that could be missions, that could be marketplace as well. That's typically how I describe the ministry residency. But I'm really curious for you because you have been in the program, you've completed the program. How do you describe the ministry residency to someone who asks you?
Stupendous was the first word. Wonderful, cool. I'm out of adjectives. You guys can take over now.
I mean, I think it was the best thing ever. And so I describe it as, I use Sean's terminology, building future kingdom leaders. So regardless of doing ministry or not ministry, it's a great way to grow. Also get your seminary degree, which is really neat.
Yeah, normally I feel like when I'm describing it to people, they're kind of curious and it's a little vague of like, what exactly are you doing? So I just say, it's an internship where we work at the church part-time and we are working on a seminary degree as well. And that usually seems to clarify it. But then I do use the language of like, it's building future kingdom leaders, preparing us for the future. we have mentors and modules that help us develop personally, those sorts of things.
Yeah, they put us in different ministry areas, so we get lots of different experiences. And I feel like being at Berean and at a larger scale church, we have lots of opportunities to grow and to learn all the different ministry areas.
What I liked about it though is the residency is not like a thing. It's not like, oh, I was a youth intern for a year. Like, oh, I did like my school. It's like, it's so many like different, I guess, avenues for growth all kind of smashed together.
Very holistic.
It's very holistic, and it works together in a way that like is impressive. Like there's a lot of things that you manage, Sean, of like directing us and having us do amazing things. And like, it's, yeah, holistic is a good word for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I'll describe that in your first year, you rotate through different ministry areas and you're in those just for a semester. But in the second year, you're in something for a whole year. So like I always use the example like Colin and his ministry areas for year 2, or my areas or Claire's, that as well.
So one of the things that that we're starting to talk about is kind of like, what does a week look like? You know, I mean, you're talking about your ministry areas, you're talking about seminary as well, you're talking about mentors. So let's just talk a little bit more about that and dive in. What does kind of a quote unquote typical week look like in the ministry residency?
Run like a chicken with your head cut off.
It's a little full.
We feel like the students showing up everywhere with backpacks. Yeah. It's kind of nice, the residency. We don't have to be here till 9. So oftentimes for us, it looked like getting up and doing homework for a couple hours before we show up to work.
Clarification, they would get up and do homework. I would sleep in.
A little different personalities, Colin.
Yeah. That's funny. And then we have Devo. We'd start our mornings as a group of us with Sean doing Devos. And then Mondays look like L10s, so meetings for us. Shout out Stan for that 90 lingo we learned really well.
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends what ministry you're in. So like our second year, Monday was a heavy college day. Often had meetings Monday morning with students. Then I'd come to like that staff meeting and then work on other stuff in the afternoon. It's like half your day is like homework, half your day is like ministry work and work. So
yeah. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays we had modules. So they had a leadership module Tuesday mornings, and then Thursday mornings were a spiritual growth module, and those would be led by staff, which was really neat, but also other staff would come. And so we got to know the staff really well in those modules, and we got to learn things like personality tests and how do I work better as a team. We read through some Dallas Willard, and James Bryan Smith really got to grow in spiritual disciplines together.
Ryan's going to like that shout out, by the way, to Dallas Willard when he listens to this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Renovation.
Any future residents, brace yourselves. You will come to know and love, and at times hate, Dallas Willard.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was coming into the residency. Now I feel like he is one of the founding fathers of Berean.
I was a little bit of like a skeptic, maybe certified hater of like, why does Aidan and all these people love Dallas Willard so much? Who is this guy? And then I went to the dark side, and I'm a huge fan now.
I mean, like when you read his stuff, you're like, it's really hard to disagree with him because he's right.
Yeah, right.
And he knows so much.
Yeah.
I think I might have told you this, but years and years ago, before Dallas passed away, probably about a year or two before he passed away, I went to a leadership conference, and he did an interview. Like John Ortberg interviewed him. It was my first time ever. I had never read any of Dallas's books at all, and every time he spoke, heads went down to right. Like it was just one of those guys where every single time he said something, people were just jotting stuff down, because you know how like scripture talks about like Jesus spoke with authority. You got Jesus, and then it feels like Dallas Willard speaking with authority, right? Right. There's just somebody who he's lived this out. He's experienced Jesus. So
yeah, he's the only podcast or YouTube video that I've ever listened to at the gym. I like my music. I like having a good time at the gym. He's the only person that can get me to turn the music off and listen to something.
That's because gym time is a big deal for Trevor. I mean, look at those arms.
I'm hiding it with the crew necks, but you can still see that they're bigger than Aidan's.
All right, so for sure. So we're talking about a week, right? What a week looks like. We've talked about serving in ministry areas. That takes up a big chunk, about 20-ish hours. Talked about modules, leadership development, and then spiritual formation, right? How do you partner with the Holy Spirit in your growth and development? What else?
We meet with mentors. I think that was one of my favorite parts of the residency is we get partnered with somebody to mentor us. So once a week we'd get together and just get to talk through what are we learning about. And they gave us advice and we got to know them really well. I appreciated the mentorship a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I love the mentorship because like that, at least for me, was like where, so you're learning all this stuff in classes and in modules and just from like wisdom you're hearing from people in the hallways. Like for me, at least, like my mentors, I would go to them and be like, okay, I've heard all this good stuff. How do I actually apply this to my life? I feel like my times with Michael and Kyle, who are my two mentors throughout my time here, like really helped me solidify, like, how do I conduct my life in a way that makes sense with all this new information that I have?
Yeah, it helps you to even filter through it, sort through it. I'm hearing this thing in class. I don't know what I think about it, that sort of thing. Wrestle with it. Yeah, mentor time was some of the best times in the residency for sure.
Yeah. From hearing from y'all, it just sounded like having somebody who is a little bit outside the program and just a little bit further along on their journey with the Lord was very beneficial.
Yeah. And to clarify, they were staff members.
Right.
Who we met with. It was the first time I had any sort of even somewhat official, like assigned mentor, someone that's like, I'm going to meet with you weekly or bi-weekly, and we're going to talk about life and faith and things like that. This is the first time I experienced something like that.
And I had a good time too. Like as much as we talked about those things, I also just enjoyed hanging out with my mentor. Like there's cool people here.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think that's a great kind of view of the week. Oh, but we should also mention on top of all that, seminary. So you are taking seminary classes, Colin's favorite topic here.
Yeah.
And working on assignments. So why don't you kind of tell us what degree did you get or are pursuing in Trevor's case?
Yeah. So originally when the residency started, it was with Gordon Conwell. So we got a Master's of Global Leadership through Gordon Conwell. So think leadership classes, which was really great. I learned a lot about shepherd leadership, which I appreciated, and then got to come and put it into place in some of my ministry areas, but also the global side and international and working. Yeah. You can describe that.
There was a lot of like missions classes, and then we have like, there was also a whole like contingent of like biblical history and theology that I think really has expanded my understanding of the Bible, just like understanding more about the context of what was going on at the time and what we've done to like pick apart what it means.
Yeah. So I started in my first semester at Gordon Conwell with these guys, and then it worked out to transfer to Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, which the residents go through now, since they took some of my credits from my undergrad at Moody, which is a Christian school in Chicago. And so I'm working on my Master's of Divinity, and I've got 2 classes left. So with the credits they took from Moody, I was about halfway done with an MDiv. So it was a great deal and helped me focus in more on what I wanted to do. Like you guys came into the residency a little vague or unsure what you want to do. I came in knowing I wanted to be in ministry. So this really helped prepare me, take more pastoral specific classes, things like that. So 2 classes away, just have church history left.
Almost there. So Trevor, I think I think that'd be good for our listeners to hear a little bit more now that they've understand the different elements of the program. What led you, right? You're already talking about that a little bit of wanting to pursue pastoral ministry. So can you share a little bit more about like what led you to pursue the ministry residency?
Yeah, for me, it felt like just a really good next step. Came to faith as a teenager, and then by early high school, freshman, sophomore year, I was like, I think I'm supposed to do something in ministry, but I don't really know what exactly that means. It's not like I have family members who are pastors or anything like that. And so felt this call to pastoral ministry, and then went to Moody, which was in Chicago, and got married in, I I don't know, sophomore or junior year. I was 21. And then it just felt like, yeah, this is a great next step. I didn't grow up in Lincoln, but I knew Berean from doing Esprit. So shout out to Carrie and Patty for the good times there. And that's how I knew of Berean and had some friends and connections here. And I was friends with Danny, who was in the program. And so I was able to have like an insider and like, okay, what is this really like? How's it helping you? What are the things you're doing? And then it just felt like the perfect next step as I went from undergrad. So now I can pursue some seminary, but also get more hands-on experience because the classroom can only do so much for you. And so it was a pretty easy decision for me.
Yeah. And one of the things as you're talking, Trevor, I think it's a good reminder that some people ask me, well, do I have to have been going to church at Lincoln Berean? And that wasn't you.
No.
You weren't going to church here.
No.
At all. You actually moved to Lincoln.
Yeah, we moved to Lincoln.
for the ministry residency.
Yeah.
So Colin and Claire, Trevor had a really good idea. This is kind of what he wants to do after the residency. How about for you two? Right? Like what led you to pursue this? And I think it's also good to be reminded of that as you were thinking about this, the residency was only a year old.
Mm-hmm.
At that time. They were just finishing the first year of this pilot program. So Trevor had some inside information from Danny, but you didn't know a ton about it.
Yeah, I was studying accounting at UNL and knowing the whole time I was in college, like, okay, I'm not actually going to do anything like directly with accounting. It's just good knowledge to have. And as I was involved in college ministries, I was like, oh, I really love this. Like, never mind the school or work side of things. Like, I just want to be here for what God's doing and the people side of it. And then I started working at Berean part-time as a next gen coordinator and then stayed on the youth team. So I did get to watch the first year of residence go through, which was really neat. So I had a decent understanding kind of what was happening, but it was like on my radar, but not really. And so then when I graduated and spring rolled around, I was like, oh, I need to figure out what I'm doing next. And so then I started praying about the residency, and it was a good next step. So I applied and was accepted, and it was like, okay, this makes sense as a good next step. Like I always, from like the end of high school on, had been like, oh, I want to take seminary classes someday. But I was like, okay, in like 40 years, it's just like an idea I would love to do. But then all of a sudden it like meshed up really well. And I was like, this is actually really awesome. And then fall rolled around. And until then, it was still just like, oh, this is a good next step. But then as we started, God really clarified that like, no, this was the next right step. Like this was a good decision.
How about you, Colin?
Yeah, so I didn't want to do the residency when I signed up.
By the way, is this any surprise?
This is like Colin. The key theme for Colin. I didn't want to, but I liked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's been most of my Christian walk has been me dragging my feet and then being like, God, you were probably right about that one again. No, so I'd gone back and forth my whole senior year. I was friends with the better Pauley, Zach. And the whole year he had been gung-ho on the residency and was trying to talk me into it. And we're both psych students. And I was gung-ho on like, I'm going to go get my PhD in psych. And I was trying to drag him back into that world. And then like a few weeks before the deadline, maybe a month before the deadline to apply, we both flipped. And all of a sudden at the last second, he was like, no, I need to go be a counselor. And I just kind of had this moment when he told me that. I was like, oh, there's a weird feeling going on in my chest right now. I got home and I was like getting ready for bed, and all of a sudden it just kind of hit me this like thought of like, you need to do the residency. I was like, absolutely not. Like I already have like grad schools picked out. I'm really excited about that. This residency thing, like no chance. And then it just became very apparent to me over the course of the next few days. Like I felt more clearly than I have any other time in my life, God being like, no, this is what I'm telling you to do. So I went ahead and applied and accepted it, the whole time being like, I don't really want to do this. I don't necessarily see a career for myself in ministry. I was interested in seminary classes, but I kind of didn't want to do more schooling. I guess it's ironic because I was also talking about doing like psych schooling, but that's a little different in my mind, at least. It ended up being the best decision I've ever made. Like, I very much think God wanted me here for a reason, and it was great. I feel way more equipped for the things that he's now sending me out to do, but I very much drug my feet on it and did not want to be here at first.
I will tell you this, Colin. It is funny, as Claire was saying, that's kind of the theme. But one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you're okay with vocalizing that, but you do have a sensitivity to what God is doing and being able to go, okay, like I might have not wanted to do it, but when I say I'm in, I'm all in. I'm committed. So I've seen that about you. The other thing I have to mention is, because I've heard you say this before, I'm just curious, how does Sydney, now your wife, react when you say the residency is the best decision you've ever made?
Okay, so I've told this to her multiple times, and she agrees.
Okay.
Because we started dating a couple months before the residency started, and then we got married right after it ended. And I think she would credit a massive amount of the growth in me that turned me from who I was into somebody who was actually like able to marry her. With like the things I learned here, because there was so much like personal development and growth and things that I learned. For example, like year 2, my mentor was Kyle Helmink, who is also the marriage counselor here at Berean. So I got tons of great advice from him that have probably saved me from a lot of mistakes that I would have otherwise made in our relationship. So yeah, she would agree with it.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure she's grateful.
And if not, she doesn't watch this podcast.
Okay.
So, and I have not told her I'm recording this one. So
surprise.
As far as she knows, I'm at work right now.
Yeah. So I think this is a good transition because look, ministry residency is hard. We're going to chat a little bit later about some of the things that the Lord did in your life, which I'm really excited to be able to share. But there's also just fun moments in the program, especially when you're just doing life for 22 months with one another. So let's talk about that. What are some of the funny, more memorable moments that you had?
Marshall, can this be a 3-hour podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
What if we just debrief the Bangladesh trip all over again?
Yeah, there's so many memories. I think in general, there's just like we're often in ministry areas together. So we'd be working on projects together, going to the store, trying to get the supplies for a project together. We just had so much fun doing those things together. But one of them was when we were in South Asia on the mission trip that we were on, and the country was having a little bit of some trouble with their government. And
they overthrew the government.
Yeah, while we were there, prisoners got let out, and somehow someone hacked the prime minister's computer, and it said like, "This is war." And we're like, "Oh, this is good. Glad we're leaving in a few days." Yeah. But there was a few moments from that trip, but one of them was we were like getting everybody together because it was really kind of ramping up at one of the campuses. It finally turned violent, the protests that had been peaceful for a long time, because the other side showed up finally. And then we're like getting the people on our team together. And then, Jacob's like, all right, we're going to like walk to the van, and we're like getting ready to go. And then we're like, all right, let's go. And then I was like, wait, we don't have Grant Weirman. Like we need to find him and the translator with him. And I know too many of his family members to let him behind. I would be a dead man if I came back without him. So that was just a funny moment. Like, oh my gosh, we almost just left Grant on this campus that's like falling apart with a protest right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so while they were doing that, there was 2 groups. My group, we were in a van driving through like traffic, and there's a video of Caleb Welsh and I laughing. This legitimately is probably the hardest I've ever laughed, just at how ridiculous our situations were. We're like a week into this trip, we're all like tired and hungry, and everything was funny. Because we didn't know, obviously, they were like fighting for their lives over here. But we were having a great time.
Yeah. Which and also I just want to point out something we didn't mention about the ministry residency is that what you're talking about with your trip to Bangladesh, every class helps co-lead an overseas mission trip in the summertime.
Yeah.
So
that's part of it. The summers have youth camp that we helped out at, VBS, and then a summer missions trip. So that's also just great learning opportunities as well. I had been on one overseas mission trip before and other mission trips in the U.S., but it was a whole other thing to kind of help lead it and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I had just gone out of the country for the first time that summer, and so I didn't know what to expect at all. And then even the equipping process for our team, because they really discipled us leading up to the trip. That way, even if we didn't go on the trip, we still would have grown, and we got to be a big part of like planning and leading our team through that. So I feel like that really was a good learning process.
I've got two in mind.
Okay.
When I think about your class. First one I'll tell, and then the second one I'll just lob up there as a softball for y'all to tell. So the first one was something we haven't mentioned is that part of taking seminary classes is that each week you meet in a kind of cohort style with Mark Mathewson, who's got a great title, right? Yeah. Resident theologian or theologian in resident. So you get to meet with him every week. And this is by far one of the most impactful times that I've heard from y'all. So I can remember one time, I think we were at a Devo, and I think it was just with you three, right? I was just meeting with your class for that Devo, and you're all excited, and you're like, we had a great tutorial. And I'm like, God's doing something. Like, this is going to be spiritually good. And so I asked, like, hey, yeah, tell me how it was. And then you start sharing how you're starting to like pry into Mark Mathewson's life and get him to share about his personal life. Sorry, Mark, by the way, if you're listening to this. And there was that moment I was like, I thought it was going to be spiritually impactful. And it was like, no, we're learning about his kids and his grandkids. And the reason why this is funny is like, if you know Mark, he's like typically kind of puts up a shield on that. It's like, hey, we're going to talk theology, but we're not going to dive into that. So y'all started to kind of chink away at his armor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mark was, one of our favorite staff members. I think I can easily say that.
Oh, yeah.
Because one, we're learning this information from him, but two, the way he lives it out in his life is just incredible. And so we're seeing somebody who not only knows and loves God's word, but is living it out so in like such radically different ways than we hear about. And so he was just really neat to be around. But yes, I loved getting every week I'd come in and I'm like, ooh, I want to know Mark a little more this week.
Yeah, Claire didn't want to talk about classes. She wanted to know about Mark's personal life.
Yeah. They'd come in with questions about theology. It's like,
he's a little bit of a mystery man.
Yep. He is. And Wednesday mornings for me was a highlight the whole 2 years. Just like time with you guys and Mark I looked forward to it every week.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So one more funny moment that we all will get a good laugh at, because this is like a mini reunion, by the way, us doing this podcast. Over the last summer, Inner Circle. I think we should share this story. So I'll set the stage. We're going through a book called Habitudes by Dr. Tim Elmore.
Great book.
And one of the habits was just talking about the different people in your life, and you put them right. You have these different categories of people based upon your depth or level of relationship. So I'll let either Trevor or Colin go from there.
Take it away, Colin.
So you have to understand is that Aidan Pauley was the guy who brought me to Christ. Like I came into college pretty iffy on faith, and he was leading a Bible study that I got roped into against my will. Actually, here's a funny story. I'm delaying because I don't want to tell this other story because it makes Trevor and I look bad. But my freshman year, Zach Pauley lived on the same floor as me. And every night we would brush our teeth at the same time. And every night he would invite me to this Bible study. And I said, no, that's for nerds. And I only agreed to go because I thought if I go once and tell him I don't like it, he'll stop bothering me. And then I ended up falling in love with it. And it was great. Anyway, so Aidan and I go way back. Aidan and Trevor also go way back. Like
I met him in the residency.
I'm trying to make you look better, man.
Oh, it's been 2 years.
I feel like the three of us, like we had a pretty tight bond. Like like it's a brotherhood, really. And we were encouraged to write down in this book, like who is our inner circle, like our core people that like we could like that's who we go to. Trevor obviously writes down his wife, and then Aidan and myself, and I write down my then girlfriend, now wife's name, and then Trevor and Aidan.
Claire. Yeah, Claire. Who was in your inner circle?
Yeah, Claire, who was in your inner circle?
I had some friends. I had your wife. And I included these two because we did life every day together. We were besties. I thought we were besties.
I just remember like we were in the courtyard and I just remember that to see Claire's face of like, you're in my inner circle, but y'all didn't include her in your inner circle. That became like a running joke for your year 2 of the residency.
They were the inner circle.
Yeah.
The outside.
That was a good representation there. Yeah, because I think we wrote like some mentors or people we look up to from afar, like a kind of friends, but not like super deep. And then, the inner circle.
Yeah, and I didn't make it on your guys'.
No, you didn't make the cut.
No, maybe now after 2 years.
Yeah, so every once in a while, I think we joke with Claire like, well, if you make us some really good cookies, you can be in the inner circle. So
now, I do want to shift gears here because, the purpose of this program, as we talked about, is to hopefully provide an environment where the Holy Spirit is going to equip you, is going to prepare you for what he has for you in the future. Colin already shared a little bit how the South Asia trip was very meaningful and impactful. So Trevor and Claire, what was like one of your more meaningful or impactful moments?
Oh, so many.
Hard because I stole the easy one.
That was like really transformational for you though. Mine was probably the spring before that. I think Sean would easily say yes to this. But the spring before, I like all year kind of pushed myself pretty hard. And then the spring with getting ready for the South Asia trip, and I had other stuff going on in life, and it just like really piled up. And I learned that I do not have good rhythms for keeping myself in a healthy spot. Like, from being overly tired or outdoing myself. And so I just crashed like end of April, beginning of May. I think I sat in Sean's office and cried a little bit because I was like, this is too much. I was just too tired. And so from that, we had a lot of really good conversations about, he called them rumble strips. Even from the beginning of the year on, I think like, okay, when do you start to recognize when you're like facing a little bit of unhealth or like too tired, or what are signs that you can recognize and being able to listen to them. And I think that really equipped me to do my second year way better because it was like, okay, I knew when to take a pause and how far I could push myself. And I just learned about my own skills and rhythms, but also, how to stay on track, like spiritually with God. Solitude days became huge for me. I really enjoyed it. It's really nice. Berean gives us a day of the month for solitude. And as a resident, that was such a needed time to just be refreshed and be with God alone. And so I think, for me, I just learned how to better track myself. How would you describe that?
No, well, I was just thinking, Claire, I was so proud of you, like, as you went through that, because, I mean, as you're talking about, like, I know it was hard. It was challenging. And there are probably moments where you're like, could I just be done with this program? But instead, you persevered through it. Like you took it as an opportunity to be able to say, I don't have the healthiest rhythms right now. And I'm going to really kind of pray through this and try to have some of those in the future. And the great thing about it is your year 2, you just didn't get as far kind of off track, right? You talk about those rumble strips, those kind of bumps on the side of the interstate. It's like you knew where those were so that as you started feeling that stress or that pressure, you could identify it early so it just didn't kind of leave you derailed over here. I mean, to me, I felt like that was just such a cool moment for you and your growth and development.
It was so cool. Even like looking back at that, then I kind of hit that moment and I was like, oh shoot, we're going to South Asia here in like a month and a half, and I'm helping like lead a little bit. And so I hit a moment where I was like, okay, God, I need you to totally revamp my life and like get me back up to like where you want me to be. And I got to see him just like change my heart, and all of these rhythms like fell into place really well. And I think just out of like just a cry of prayer for like, okay, God, I need you to help me out here and guide me and keep me on track.
Yeah. And I would also I just thought of this too. I think in year 2, you had more on your plate because like some of the ministry areas, they can somewhat feel a little bit more task. Like you show up, you do the job. But like in year 2, we were both in college, and so we're discipling college students. Like that's a little more weighty than like our first semester, and we're helping out with campus ops, setting up rooms. Like that just takes more of a toll. But I think because you took the moments to grow that spring, I think you were even able to put more on your plate, but handle it better because you just were able to set up rhythms to be able to like manage different priorities and set yourself up to actually take on more. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to take all these things off my plate. It was like you established a way to be able to handle demands of being in ministry. And so that was pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
And I think it equipped me not only for, year 2, but now the rest of my life, no matter what I do, how can I do it well?
Yeah, definitely.
How about you, Trevor?
Yeah. What was the question again? Meaningful
Meaningful
moments. Like Colin mentioned earlier, like you're just rubbing shoulders with so many different staff members and absorbing wisdom from them. You just get to see how they operate and how they do things, how they think through things. As residents, you can end up in a lot of meetings, and sometimes you're like, oh man, another meeting. But you see how different ministry leaders and people think through solving problems, how they approach things like that. I think there's 2 big meaningful moments. So in my seminary, I took 2 preaching classes, which they were okay. But part of it was because there were practicums, I had to meet with someone every week. And so I got to do those with Brian, and that was incredible. To just go in there, talk about preaching, talk about life, talk about being a pastor, all those things. Like knowing Brian from like when I was in a spree, like I just saw him from afar. I was like, man, this preaching is really good. And to me, it was like, I don't really care about the big names and being around them in the preaching world. Like the famous pastors, I'm like, I want to sit with Brian Clark. And so to be able to do that for a couple of semesters was incredible. And I learned so much from him. Phrases that impacted me. Like he talked about sometimes, as when you're preaching, someone will come up and say, oh, you really stepped on my toes. And Brian said, I preach with sore toes. Meaning like the text convicts me. God works in my own heart before I ever step on a stage and preach it. And it's like, that's a bar. Like that is so good. And so just learned so much about life and ministry and pastoring and preaching from Brian, but also Ryan in this office. He was my year 2 mentor, and there was just some things going on in life. And I'm like, Mark, keep the shield up, all those sorts of things. And Ryan called me out, was like, I think you're just trying to stay numb to that, because I do a pretty good job of that. And he called that out. But then he also he gave me some compliments, said I was a good man and all these things. Oh, it's making me emotional. Shoot. I am not much of a crier, but it meant so much. So that was huge for me. Love you, Ryan. Hope you're having fun on sabbatical.
But so Trevor, when you were talking, here's what I was thinking. One of the areas that I've seen you grow the most in, right? We're talking about like how the Holy Spirit has used this program is vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because as you talk about, you're dependable, you're steady. Sometimes I would joke around saying, I don't know if Trevor has a pulse right now. Like, do your emotions ever go high or low? And I think that is something that the Lord was wanting to do, is to be able to say, as a follower of Christ, as a leader, you got to let people in. You got to be okay with that. And so I know you don't like to get emotional, but I think that's just a testimony to what God has been doing in your life. And I love the fact that you had an opportunity where Ryan could speak godly identity.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Like if I wouldn't have ended up working here full time, like I would have remembered that moment for the rest of my life. Me and Aidan joke, Ryan also mentored Aidan as well. And so like, we just look up to him. We spent time with him. We try to learn from him. I mean, his character is just incredible. Like we've seen him lead the church through different change and things like that. And it's just been phenomenal. And so when someone like that says something like that to you, it's pretty powerful. And so, and one of the things in the residency, like just an area of growth was, like you would joke with me, Sean, like, okay, Colin and Claire, like they think you don't struggle. Like, in my one-on-one, I'd be like, yeah, this is kind of bothering me or whatever. And he's like, it might be good for you every once in a while to like admit that you struggle or something bothers you or stresses you out, because people around here don't think you get stressed. But now my inner circle has learned that I get stressed.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at you, Claire. He's including you.
No, I look straight at Colin.
I know I'm in the inner
There you
circle.
go. That's right.
Maybe not by his choice.
Maybe Lily's choice, your wife.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, we talk about this. The goal of the residency is to prepare you for the calling that God has on your life. And that's not necessarily to work here at Lincoln Berean. That could be in a variety of contexts. And so now that you've been through these 22 months, as we've been talking about here and sharing memories, how do you feel like it's prepared you, right? So for Trevor and Claire in your current roles, and then, Colin, I know you're in a little bit of a unique situation right now. So how do you feel like God has used the program to prepare you for what you're doing now, or what you are going to do?
Colin?
I can go first.
We haven't heard from Colin in a minute, and I like listening to Colin talk.
See, he's too nice to me. I think, so one of the ways I think the residency prepared me is really even just learning, how do I understand what do we even mean by a calling on my life, and how do I figure out what that is, and how do I learn how to listen to God? Because that's something I think I learned a ton about in the residency. Is like I was really good at speaking at God, but I learned so many different things about, okay, here's how I can set up my life in such a way that I can actually hear him when he's responding to me. Because it turns out God is talking to us all the time. At least for me, I just am not listening most of the time. But that was a huge thing for me. As far as where I'm at now, so I had a job lined up for after the residency.
You went through the ringer.
Yeah.
It's a long story short. Trevor makes it sound worse than it was because God had a plan the whole time. I had a job. I was going to go back into the kind of the psych world. That job fell through. Got a different job kind of in the same vein. That job fell through for similar reasons. And then I had to get married because I did that this summer. Got to. I got to get married.
Let's clarify that.
The wedding had to happen. It's just the timing of the wedding was a weird spot where it was like, okay, because this job, so I spent the last few months unemployed until last week. I finally started working just kind of a temporary job for the time being. Long term, my wife Sydney and I still have plans. I would like to go back and at some point get my PhD in psych and become a professor, because I think having experience with things I did in the residency, I really, even though I never directly worked in college ministry, I really enjoyed the vibe of that. I enjoyed working with college students, and I think that I would like to continue to do that. But one of the things I also learned in the residency is that I, at least for right now, feel no calling or really even desire to work full-time for the church. Obviously, I think what we do here at Berean is great. You guys do here at Berean is great. I'm not the we anymore.
No, you're part of it. It's not just staff.
Yeah.
Every person.
Yep, absolutely. Every person has a ministry.
Yes, that is true.
You learned that in the residency.
I did learn that. I need to watch my language on that kind of thing sometimes.
You lead a life group.
Yeah. Well, but what you're saying, I think obviously it's easy to fall into. Even already, I'm only a couple months removed. Yeah. I'm already starting to think of it as church. There's a church staff, and then there's a congregants, and this is somehow two different groups of people, when really they're the same group of people. Mm-hmm. We're all here doing God's work. It's just, I think, for me vocationally, I feel no desire to work full time for the church. And before the residency, I would have thought of that as probably a bad thing. If you're a Christian, you probably should want to work for the church. And if you don't, that probably just means you're either selfish or something. Or I'm now realizing no, God has a plan for everybody. And for most people, that probably doesn't include working for the church. So I'm still a little bit in the process of figuring out where I'm being called. But I think that there's a huge need for well-equipped congregants and volunteers at the church all over the place. So.
Yeah, I think you bring, Colin, I think you bring a great point up. Everything we do can be ministry, right? As long as we have the right heart and the right motives. One of the things that I feel like, even as you're talking, you got a lot of clarity where you kind of came in going, maybe it might be church ministry, maybe something else. And then you really kind of came out of the residency going like, no, like I know God wants to have me in the marketplace. And so I'm curious, are there any kind of lessons that you're going to take from the residency that you think is going to really prepare you being in that quote unquote marketplace space?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, there's a million things. I think for me, one of the big things is like, and having talked to some people who are on church staff now that have been, well, like yourself, that worked also like kind of in the marketplace, like, I don't really know how to say it. Like there's still a way you can construct your life to make your life ministry without it being the thing you get paid to do every day. And I think the biggest thing through that is like spending time with God, understanding your calling, and then pursuing that and being like very content with like, okay, I've talked to God, I've listened to him. He's given me this like specific thing that I feel like he's telling me to do, whether that's leading a life group or that's volunteering with youth, or if that's just like, I'm not going to do those things, but what I'm going to really focus on is I'm going to go to my job at the law firm every day and I'm going to be a light for Christ. And like people are going to know through the way I live and how I speak and what I talk about, like that I'm a Christian, like there's a better life that they can also take part in. And like, that's just where you concentrate your time and energy. And I think I didn't realize like that ministry could be done if you're not full-time on the church before I got here. But I think seeing how like people who are now on staff here live their lives beforehand, it's like very obvious to me. Like, yeah, you can be a ministry worker without being paid by the church.
Yeah.
I remember even throughout the residency, especially our first year, like you thought when you're thinking, I'm going to go back in the psych world. Yeah. And you had a really helpful professor that talked about Christians who are biblically sound and theologically sound need to be in these spaces because the psychological world impacts so much.
But yeah, and like the psych world is even more so than any other like academic field, very secular. So like there is a need for Christian voices there. Because I remember, well, she knows who she is, so I won't call her out by name because I'm sure she wouldn't like it. But like there was a group of us that like clung to this lady when we were at UNL, like in psych, because it was like she was the only Christian we were aware of on staff. It's like that's who you go to when you're confronted with like, wow, we face this really difficult like. I read a book while we were in college that was basically just trying to prove that religion was like a construct of the human mind and there was no evidence for God. So it's like, man, we're reading that. Like we go to her, like, how do I answer this question?
That's one of the things I love, Colin, about where you're at, because that's a big purpose of the ministry of residency. It's not just church ministry. It's to prepare you to be a light in the marketplace. And so that's the cool opportunity that you're going to get to step into. So Trevor and Claire, you are on staff at Lincoln Berean, which is really exciting. So why don't you share what you're doing and then how the ministry of residency has prepared you for those roles?
Claire, you want to go first?
Yeah. I am on the kids team now, which is fun because, yeah, like I said, I studied accounting. And then throughout the residency, I was like, I could see myself doing ministry. Like college ministry would be so fun, but also I'd be totally good going back and working in the marketplace and just being really well equipped to do whatever God's called me to do and loving on the people around me. But then I like knew this position was opening a little bit in advance, but I was like, no. And then God just like used some things to really be like, oh wait, maybe you do want to consider this job. And so right now I'm on the kids team. I'm see if I can get the words all together, early childhood associate director. And so getting to work with littles, which is really fun. Also because I like love kids and always wanted to work with kids someday. And so it works out really well. But this specifically equipped me, for starters, I mean, working on staff. Like I already knew the systems. I'd already worked with the kids team quite a bit. I knew a lot of the families and kids, which was really nice going in. And so, yes, it was like starting a new job, but also at the same time, like they didn't have to, onboard me on a lot of systems. And I don't know, I got to step in just a little smoother. Like God really used opportunities in the ministry to prepare me for working on staff here. But then, being able to come in and being like, okay, I have the biblical knowledge to look at curriculum and understand what's important and how do we make this so simple that little kids can understand it, and shepherding and different things like that, where I'm like, oh, I have a vision for even all the youth we have on our volunteer team. Like, okay, how do we shepherd these youth well that are serving and giving their time, and equip them so that in future years they can continue to serve better? And yeah, there's a...
Oh, I was just going to say, Claire, my family benefits from you in this role, because my wife Jen and I have a 3.5-year-old son named Atlee, who is in our early childhood Sunday school classes. So thank you for your leadership, because we get the chance to benefit from it.
It's so fun. Great. If anybody's listening to this and have kids in early childhood, I love your kids.
All right, Trevor, how about you?
Okay, well, first, also Aidan and Sophie, their baby. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get her soon, I would imagine. So, okay, for me, like I mentioned earlier, Claire and I both worked in college ministry as part of our residency, and I'm now the college director. So that helped in so many ways. Just the stuff you can't necessarily quantify in terms of knowing the leader students that are a part of that. You know, some of them, I was coming alongside them over the past year and even was prompting them like, hey, I think you'd be a good leader and things like that. So in some ways, it is kind of how it worked out. I got to almost be a part of selecting that. And we did get the opportunity to voice our opinions while we were residents as the interviews were happening for potential leaders. So that helped. So just knowing the students, being familiar, like you said, the systems of Lincoln Berean and how things operate and things like that. I had never used Microsoft Teams before the residency. So it's like even that sort of thing. I also was a Gmail person, thought I was going to be till the day I die. Love Google Drive, had to learn Outlook and OneDrive and those sorts of things. That's prepared me. Like within my first month of being full-time, I like moved a file from one place to another. It's pretty epic. So those funny things, like Claire mentioned the systems, but also one of the things Claire and I had the opportunity to do was help formulate the spring teaching curriculum for college ministry. We had the puzzle pieces, like we knew we were going to do spiritual disciplines, but we got to pick what disciplines we covered. We got to invite different people on staff to come teach week to week. Claire spent some of the time also thinking about, okay, we're going to teach on this spiritual discipline. How can our students practice it beyond just a Thursday night? So we were involved in those sorts of things. So then it was like when I was hired in early July, fall's coming, the semester's coming. What are we going to teach every Thursday night? So just having experience like that, the different modules, thinking about like how I'm wired, how that fits on a team, and how, you know, that person might be wired. And, you know, I can sometimes be a little maybe too intense of thinking about work ethic and too hardline, like you got to be, it's got to be done absolutely 100% perfect and excellent. And in the ministry world, that can be tricky because you do want to serve God well and do it with excellence and serve him well, but also like God can use a teaching that you don't feel like you were able to prep as much as you wanted or things like that. So the different modules talking about our wiring, that helped me to identify, okay, oh, this makes sense why I have this thought or things like that and why I don't see it the way someone else does. Learning about conflict management, things like that just helped me to grow in my own self-awareness, how I'm wired, what are maybe some blind spots for me as a leader, things like that Lauren is seeing firsthand, you know, but all those things gave me at least a little bit of a head start in the residency to identify those things instead of, you know, I'm sure I'll make some real poor mistakes on my team, but it helps me to like even the rumble strips of like, oh, okay, I may be nearing something that could be a mistake or I can be pretty blunt. And so, okay, how do I say this in a way, but get my point across? Those sorts of things and just growing as a leader. It is really funny being a resident. And I joked, it's like, Lauren, I used to take orders from you, and now like you're asking me if you can have this like half day off. It's like, who am I to say no? Is how it kind of feels. It's a little funny, but so that's been even just interesting to adapt to, but it helped to know Lauren previously, know where, just based on her own journey and story, like what are things that bother her and bother me, and just to be able to know each other, have some trust going into me starting in the role as well, because that's hard to have your team change and someone new's coming in and things like that. So all those sorts of things within the residency helped me, as well as just even things like Sean was always encouraging us to get teaching reps. So for me, in our time in kids ministry, I taught in the 2-year-old room at one point. Atlee was in there. I remember Sean even coming to like evaluate me. It was so funny. But then
I had to hide so Atlee couldn't see me.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise it would have been chaotic. And then, so I taught like in that environment, or like 4th and 5th grade, the kindergarten through 3rd grade room. So all those different kids environments. We also taught in youth, both in middle school, Activate on Sunday mornings, but then student ministry night on Wednesday nights. So middle school and high school. I taught at college, but then I also was a part of teaching the core class, the Bible class with Shireen, for a couple of sessions. And there's people in there who, they're old enough to be my grandparents. So I had a great variety of teaching experience, which I think helped me prepare as well for the future.
Yeah.
So
there's also like, I was just realizing this as we're sitting here talking about this, like there was this beautiful aspect, at least to me, of like, I feel like the three of us in a way grew up together. Like,
oh yeah,
we didn't go to like, I guess you and I kind of knew each other, Claire, but like we basically all kind of like met day one of the residency. And like to think how far all three of us have come in those 2 years. Like you and I were fresh out of college. Trevor was a couple of years out, 1 or 2 years out.
I graduated December of 22. So like, I don't know, 8-9 months away.
And to see now, like in that time, all of a sudden now, yeah, you guys are directors of things. I'm basically unemployed still, but like in like some of the emotional maturity that I think all three of us have gone through, the mountains of emotional maturity and growing up, all three of us have done.
It's pretty incredible. Like you've heard me say this before, and I think this will be a good segue as we wrap up with our final question. But I'm so proud of each one of you. Like. The residency is challenging, and you chose to persevere through it. We have a unique bond because we start at the same time, right? I came on staff in this role in July of 2023, and then you started in August. Now, by the way, unique bond. I did not say favorite class. I want to make sure of this.
We don't have to be the favorite to know we're the best class.
To clarify this unique bond. But I really am. I am, what you're saying, Colin, I am proud of the growth and development that the Lord has done in your life. Like I really am. So well done with that. So today we got to hear about the residency. We got to hear some fun stories. We got to hear some impactful stories. So I'm imagining we have two groups of listeners. We have one group who they themselves might be interested in the ministry residency. And then we have a lot of other people who are going, that's not for me, but I might know somebody who's interested. So what would you say to those groups?
Well, I already used my best line for this question, which is I tell people, I told my wife right before we got married that the residency was the best decision I ever made. And I stand by that. But honestly, like it's, in my mind, I can't imagine a better way to spend 2 years as like a young-ish Christian, whether you're just out of college or a few years removed, like as far as the personal and spiritual and even just like work skills development. Like we couldn't have possibly gotten more out of 2 years. I don't know what else could have happened, like to prepare us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I'd say talk to Sean or reach out. Like it's just take the next step and like apply, ask questions if you're in that I'm interested. if you're somebody just listening or in the church body, if you have somebody in your life who maybe is in this age frame and you see them serving and you see them actively pursuing other people and becoming more like Christ and helping others do the same, then I'd say talk to them about this, whether they're at Berean or elsewhere, a family member. Like, it's you guys who are going to be the ones recruiting. A lot of you probably know us and have experienced working with us through the ministry residency, and it's awesome. So we'd love to get another really neat class of residents for next year.
Yeah, if I'm thinking of someone who's thinking about the residency, I just, like, why would you not? So some of the things that also people maybe are a little fuzzy on or things like that, we are paid by the church, so we get paid. They also help out with an insane amount of our tuition. And so that is huge. So again, we're not making six figures as residents, obviously. But when you also add up the tuition factor, like, it's pretty significant what the church is putting in terms of finances towards the residency. So they're investing in you that way. And then just as a person, like, we've talked so much about the personal development, spiritual growth, those sorts of things. I found some of my absolute best friends. I had a friend who knew both Aidan and I individually, and he said, you two will either love each other or hate each other. And it's all love. Like, he's become one of my best friends. So it's pretty incredible. And even just the bonds with you guys and other young people we've met at the church, like, it's just like a great icing on the cake that there's some really solid young people here who want to pursue Jesus and live life with him. And you get to do that with each other as you're in the residency. And then, for people thinking about, if there's someone in your life who might be interested in something like this, Colin's not the only resident who doesn't work here. Like, there's other residents who didn't end up working here. And it's just such a great environment to grow. It's probably been the densest 2 years of growth in my life. Even Lily last night said, I was talking to her about the podcast, and she's like, you were phenomenal before, but she's like, you are incredible now. Like, and that's a big part of the residency. So,
and I would also say this, really for our whole congregation, for those listening, your prayers are invaluable as we have residents going through this program, and just praying that like our current residents right now will have the same humility and perseverance that y'all have, so that they can get the most out of this. Well, I do hope that for our listeners, I hope it's been a beneficial conversation for you. We've had a blast in our little mini reunion. And as I mentioned earlier, because I've never listened to an episode, our producer has given me notes to outro this. So if you have any questions about anything we talked about, if you have any questions about the ministry residency, you can send those to Don't Just Sit There Pod. So that's Don't Just Sit There, POD, at lincolnberean.org. You can comment on YouTube or Spotify, or you can message us on the Don't Just Sit There page on the Lincoln Berean website. And if you have a lot of questions about the ministry residency, they might let us back on. We'll see what happens.
Send us some questions.
Some fun ones.
Thanks for listening.